Good evening, madam. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Happy Sunday.
Good. Thank you very much. So I think we can just start. In case there is network failure, please let me know as soon as possible. So let me switch on my screen. So can you see my screen, please? Can you confirm, madam? Is my screen or my screen visible to you?
Yes, sir, but the thing is too tiny.
It's too tiny. Can you zoom it from your own screen, if possible?
Yes, but the network just running on it is blunt.
Actually, let me see how I can expand.
I can zoom it, but the thing is not. Okay.
I guess it's much better.
Mm.
Is it much better? Is it much better?
No, sir.
Even after
It's
turning
only
my
the
screen.
study section that I can see and user-oriented perspective. But the other, okay, the thing is coming as well.
Can you see now?
I can see small, but it's not clear. But I can see what you wrote here. Learning outcomes, main
Okay.
content,
So is she the only
organization issue, but the
one
thing is
having
still.
trouble? Is she the only one? Can others confirm as well,
Sir,
please? Is she the
no,
only
sir.
one having trouble?
It's bigger enough.
It's bigger now, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so without wasting time, let's just begin. So we're going to look at a new module, which is module number 2. And under module number 2, we have 4 study sessions. And the first session is the one we are going to study today. And the title of today's session is User-Oriented Perspective of Human-Computer Interaction. We are going to focus on social human trust. That is what we are going to look into today. Now, under the subheadings, we'll be looking at the learning outcomes. Then we'll be looking at the main content, which include organizational issues affecting human-computer interaction. And then we'll be looking at invisible workers that also affect computer interaction. And then we'll be looking at the socio-technical modeling. And then under that, we'll be looking at stakeholders focus, and then the 8 stages task analysis. And then we'll go on to look at subsystem methodologies, then participatory design, then ethnography, and subsequently we'll be looking at contextual inquiry. This is what we'll be looking at under this section. I want you to know that this section is going to explain user-oriented perspective of human-computer interaction by focusing on social, organizational, and human factors that influence or that affect how computer systems are designed and accepted. Now, uh, that whenever you want to business, it to feel analysis or to some important fact on your features, fact like this very important. These are very important because they can actually shape how things are built. So this is why it is important when designing a system, we need to look at the user orientation, the user-oriented perspectives, the user principles, the user's requirement, the user's demand. Now, by so doing, we look at the user's socio, organizational, and human factors. So in this section, we are going to describe socio-technical models that consider both human as well as technical needs. And then we'll be looking at, we are going to also explain subsystem methodologies by analyzing organizational problems. Then we'll be understanding participatory design and user involvement in system development. And then, of course, we'll explain ethnographic methods for studying users in real environment. And then finally, our final outcome is to understand contextual inquiry and workforce-based investigation. So this is what this entire study is going to be about today. It is very important to also note that when designing a computer system, the technology alone is not enough. But they are very technical implementation, technology, the cultural context, as well as the stakeholders' interest, and then control in the organization. These are very important. They form the organizational structure. Look at the people who control the organization. And in organizational structure, we always hierarchy people. Some are called the stakeholders, while some are CEOs, some are directors, person will help effective security policies as well as distribution of administrative rights as well as privileges. Now, also, we look at the social relationships. Sometimes it is important to look at the social relationships because certain relationships can affect work. Likewise, cultural relationships or cultural context. You can't ask somebody who is a Muslim, for example, to manage a system that handles Bible. It is completely out of order because you are going to make it very difficult for that person, or perhaps maybe to provide the same services to a Christian to run a system that manages a Muslim scripture, which is going to be very difficult for them. So cultural context is very, very important in this situation. Now, another thing is the stakeholders' interests. The stakeholders are the people who are in charge of managing, or perhaps they are the ones that bring value to the business, or they bring value to the system. Now, their interests is also very important because in the end, perhaps maybe they are going to be the end users. Likewise, power and control within the organization, it is very important to take care of those issues. So sometimes we believe that new systems succeed or fail depending on who benefits, who does the work, and who controls the system. So organizational context sometimes affects users' attitude as well as systems acceptance. You may build a system that may end up not being accepted by the people who run that particular organization. So this is why it is important we look at the first issue, which is the organizational issue. Now, organizational issue or organizational factors can make or break a system, and studying the work group is not sufficient since any system is used within a wider context and the crucial people need not to be the direct users. Therefore, before installing a new system, one must understand who benefits from the system, who benefits from the system, who does the work, who has the power, and who may resist the system. These are very, very important. Now, that brings us to a very important debate, which is the conflict and power. Now, different groups may have conflicting goals within the organization. Now, why do we say different groups? Now, we all know that, especially Nigeria is also a case study. We all know that you hardly put people together on one particular system in Nigeria without having a political interference. Whether this one is in support of the boss and the other is not, or this one is anti-progress and the other is not. So in the end, we end up having a different agenda, or we end up having a conflicting goal. Now, take for instance, sometimes some people may even go to the extra mile of distorting the system or sabotaging the system. I'll give us a practical example. Now, when Dangote refinery first came to existence, Dangote complained that during design and implementation, as well as development of this refinery, a lot of sabotages were recorded. People were sent to destroy one thing or another, sometimes even set fire. Now, these are what we call conflict and power in terms of computer-human interaction. So therefore, designers must identify all stakeholders, not just users, because the stakeholders can also destroy the system if their goals are not aligned. So this is why it is very, very important. Now, the next thing we should be looking at is the organizational structure. I gave a quick overview of what the organizational structure is, but it is important to also note that the organizational structure has a very important impact to make, because in the end, technology can change communication structure. Why do we say that? We say that because the way we rank our organizational structure in terms of communication may actually affect how the system is run. Take, for instance, who reports to who is whose superior. These are very important things in terms of communication. Do you just talk directly to the boss, or do you have access directly to the main server? These are structures that we must respect, and there are boundaries we must follow, and there are policies we must adhere to. Another thing is that technology can affect management style, the way the organization is being managed, the way certain people interact with one another can also be affected by technology. And likewise, we can say that the country. So sometimes technology can actually improve workflow and efficiency, especially in terms of tax collection, as well as recording successes and failures in the Nigerian economy. These are very important matters. Now, number two, we're looking at the invisible workers. Now, when looking at the invisible workers, we say that sometimes there are people who do not work in the physical structure, or they do not work in the physical premises of our organization. They work remotely. And today we have seen that people are making millions of money or dollars by simply working from their bed. Now, I myself, I want to tell you the fact that probably some of you may not agree, some of you may not believe me, but trust me, from last year, January to December of last year, I think I made over 40 million without going out to work. 40 million naira without having to go out and work. All I have to do is stay in my bed, or sometimes put on my system on my table, work from home, and then I get paid. So my last year's income, just my remote works or my remote jobs, they actually brought me over 40 million last year alone. So this is how much people are making from remote works. Now, modern systems today allow not only remote works, but also something we call teleworking. Now, what is teleworking? Teleworking is the act of using telephones to work. Take, for instance, there are US companies that do not recruit people in the US to do certain work for them because of cheap labor. What do? They go to India, they go to Bangladesh, they go to Nigeria. They find people who can simply answer phone calls and make money for them. Now, take Microsoft, for example. Microsoft has a support center. Now, in Microsoft support centers, there are people working from their homes and they've never been to any office and they are making millions every month. So sometimes technology has paved way for uh, teleworking as well as home-based jobs, as well as what we call distributed teams, people working distributively. Take, for instance, system developers. A lot of people can develop system without having to meet one another. If you are working on platforms such as GitHub, I'm very sure you know what I'm talking about. Now, what is the benefit? The benefit is that um, it reduces travel costs. It reduces um, cost of living. For example, having to go elsewhere and start renting a house. It also lowers your cost. Maybe there is no transportation fare and so on. And it is also environmentally friendly. Now, why do we say it's environmentally friendly? It's environmentally friendly because when you don't use your car or you don't go out to work, you help us reduce the carbon emissions that the globe is receiving every single day. You know, as we drive our cars are actually emitting carbon, and this carbon is very bad for the environment. But a typical black man, a typical Nigerian will disagree. Fools like Donald Trump will also disagree that this carbon footprints can actually affect the globe. Now, let me give you this example. Let's pause here. This year and last year, there wasn't much cold season. The cold season, the Hamatan season, the winter season was not as good as previous years. I think this year's winter is one of the worst winters we ever had. And the reason is all because of environmental crisis, because there is a lot of environmental pollution, there is a lot of carbon emission in the globe, and therefore the temperature is hotter, even in the cold time or in the cold season, but still the environment was very hot. Now look at the hot we are enduring now, the hot weather we are enduring now. In the afternoon is burning, in the night is burning. Now at times in Nigeria to walk around and perceive clean air, wallahi, is a problem. So these are very, very, difficult moments for us, and we need to do something about it. This is why we say it has an environmental benefits. Now, moving forward, um, it's important to also acknowledge what we call design principles. Now, when designing a system, we need to avoid the following, and this is all in relation to my previous discussion. Now, some of the things we need to avoid is that we need to always design systems that benefit people at large, something that people can actually work with and find it easy to understand. Do not create systems that are complex. Now, disadvantage of having a complex system is that When the person who designed the system is no longer with the system, whether he's dead or his contract has been revoked, then it is very difficult to undo some of the complex things that person may have done within the system. So it is very important to kind of have a system that is flexible, that is scalable, and that is easy to manage. This is very important. Now, moving forward, please let me have a sip of water. Now, moving forward, the next on the line is the issue of the stakeholders. Now, according to this affect success, fail this. Anybody success or by the system's failure considered that the person is a customer, whether the person is may actually succeed or fail. When the system fails or when the system succeeds, then we believe that this person has fallen under the category of a stakeholder. Now, these stakeholders sometimes can be divided into categories. Now, we have what we call the primary stakeholders. Now, who are the primary stakeholders? The primary stakeholders are the direct users of the system. For example, imagine you have a booking system. Imagine you have a booking system. Somebody who has a direct access to the booking system can be considered as a primary stakeholder. Now, another example given here is somebody who manages a travel agency or an airline booking staff. These are considered primary stakeholders because they work directly on the system. They are the ones that offer the services the system provides. Next, we have what we call the secondary stakeholders. Now, who are the secondary stakeholders? The secondary stakeholders are usually the customers. These are people that provide input or perhaps receive output from this system. Now, let's use the example of the airline. Now, if you purchase a ticket and then in return you receive your tickets, then it means you are considered a secondary stakeholder because directly the system provides for you, or you receive something from the system. So this is why we consider you a secondary stakeholder. Then we have what we call the tertiary stakeholder. Now, the tertiary stakeholders are people who are indirectly affected by the systems. Now, example, the competitors, people who compete with that particular organization can be considered as tertiary stakeholders. Now, why are they considered tertiary? They are considered tertiary because if the system fails, it is time for them to make money because they are going to use the failure of the system to boost their own business. This is why we say that they are indirectly affected by the system. And this is why we see competitors are an example of those people. I believe you no longer see my screen. Let me see what happened. And let me see if I can restore my screen. All right. Now, the next example of stakeholders, or the next type of stakeholders, are the facilitating stakeholders. Now, who are the facilitating stakeholders? The facilitating stakeholders, they actually develop or deploy the system. So you can say the IT team or the developing team or the designer team who put the system together. We call them the facilitating stakeholders. So when asked in the exam or in the test to give the types of stakeholders, I'm very sure you should be able to mention that we have the primary stakeholders, we have the secondary stakeholders, we have the tertiary stakeholders, and the facilitating stakeholders. Now, the next topic is the socio-technical modeling. Now, when talking about socio-technical modeling, we are referring to factors including human factors, organizational issues, technical systems, and social relationships. Now, if we look at the note, it says this is a response to technological determinism, and it is concerned with the technical, social, organizational, and human aspect of design. It also describes the impact of specific technology on organization, and it is concerned with information gathering, such as interviews, observations, discussions with focus groups, and document analysis. And several approaches to be considered are the stakeholders focus, as well as the ESTA, which is 8-stage task analysis. So these are actually the models we're going to study. So in short and in summary, we can say that the socio-technical modeling is concerned about considering human factors, organizational issues, technical systems, and social relationships when designing a system. And by so doing, it's very important to consider the following approaches, which includes what we call the stakeholders focus, the ESTA. So we are going to look at these models one by one. And also it's important to remember that information gathering in this regard is conducted through interviews, observation, focus groups, and document analysis. So let's look at the two approaches by starting with the first approach, which is the stakeholders focus. Now, the stakeholders focus comprises of 6-stage processes that focus on the stakeholder. Now, the first process describes organizational context. Now, when we say organizational context, we can say that it describes the primary goals as well as the physical characteristics, political and economic background of the organization. That is the first thing. Number one, primary goals, physical characteristics of the organization, political and economical background of the system. These are very important. That is number one. Number two, it identifies the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? And what are the types of stakeholders we are dealing with? Are we dealing with the entire 4 stakeholders, or we are only dealing with 2 or 3 or 4 of them altogether? So it's very important to understand and identify the stakeholders, because through that, we can be able to assign roles and we can be able to set our policies to work in line with our organizational structure as well as the organizational stakeholders. Number 3, it is very important to identify the work groups. Now, who are the work groups? These work groups are people who work within the organization in terms of their category. Some are permanent staff, some are staff on contract, some are junior staff, some are senior staff, some are admin, some are managerial staff, some are executive staff, some are board of directors. So it's very important to identify work groups so that you can be able to assign roles and responsibilities respectively. Number 4, we identify the task object pairs. Now, when we talk about task, we actually perform a kind of analysis in order to understand or in order to identify various tasks and responsibilities, as well as attaching those responsibilities to those who are responsible for those tasks. So this is very important. Number 5, we identify the stakeholders' needs. Now, when talking about the stakeholders' needs, we are actually talking about system requirements. How do we design the system? What will the system the stakeholders need? So you need to sit down with the stakeholders in order to identify those needs. And through what? We're going to do all that through interview, observations, document, and also the last point is that we need to validate our requirements. Now, by validating our requirements, we're actually consolidating and checking the stakeholders' requirement against the earlier criteria. Now, this is more like betting, or this is more like double checking the requirements to ensure that the requirements are met and to ensure that all requirements are in line with number 2 as well as number 4. These are very important. Now, moving forward, we're going to look at the second model. Now, in the second model, this model focuses on tasks and system performance. And this is why we call it the 8-stage task analysis, that is ESTA. Now, the focus of this model is number 1, it identifies, I don't know why my system is logging me out. Let me restore it back again. Maybe it's the network. I'm not sure. I think that somebody has dropped a message. Let me look at the message before we proceed. Somebody says, good evening, my screen is blurring. The write-up is not readable. Actually, it's not even my responsibility to display the write-up or the note on this screen. I believe everybody has a note because it has been posted in the group. So it is also important that you all have it on your mobile phones so that as I'm reading mine, you should also be reading yours. So please do not complain about the size of the note or perhaps the blurring of the note. Please take note of that. So we were actually talking about the 8-stage task analysis, which we say number 1, it focuses on identifying the primary tasks. Now, the moment you hear the word primary, it means that the organization has a lot of tasks. We have primary tasks, we have secondary tasks, we have tertiary tasks. So identifying the primary task means that we are ranking the tasks into the order of importance, which comes first, which has more priority over others. So this is why we need to identify the primary tasks, also known as user goals. Number 2, we identify tasks inputs. Now, task inputs are the information necessary, required for the system to be able to work. If you have a system without input, the system is useless. So whatever task you have, we need to also identify what are the inputs that are associated with those tasks. Number 3, we need to also describe the external environment. The environmental the external environment into which the system will be introduced is described, including physical, economical, and political. So describing the external environment is very important in order to understand the needs as well as the requirements of the stakeholders. Number 4, we need to describe transformation process. In the case of upgrade or in the case of scalability of the system, we need to identify the process of transformation so that actions can be performed or can be executed appropriately. Number 5, we need to analyze social system, and social system considers the existing as well as it considers the existing internal as well as the external work groups and their relationships. This is very important. For example, if you are under the ticketing and reservation of the system, what is your relationship with your other work groups? That is very important. There are other work groups who are not within the organization and they provide a service that depends on you. Take, for instance, internet. We have an internet service provider. Without the internet, the system cannot work, and therefore even the internal work groups cannot work. So we need to sometimes understand the relationship between the external as well as the internal work group, which is very important. Number 6, we need to describe the technical system. Now, technical system is described in terms of configuration as well as integration with other systems. Knowing the system configuration, understanding the boundaries as well as scope of system configuration plays a vital role during scalability and upgrade, or sometimes during integration. Now, take Facebook, for example. Facebook is not one whole system. It is a system built from different integral systems. Every system forms what we call Facebook today. So it is very important that when designing a system, we describe the technical system so that we understand the configuration as well as the integration protocols of the system. Number 7, we also need to define performance criteria. Performance criteria are established, indicating social and technical requirements of the system. And then finally, we need to specify the new technical system, which is also another important factor. Now, all this, if we put them together, all the 8 stages of task analysis, if we put them together, they ensure social and technical alignment. Now, when we say social and technical alignment, we mean to say that now I'm going to move to the next topic, which is subsystems methodology. Now, subsystem methodology considers the broader view of human and organizational issues. There is no assumption of technological solutions here. Emphasis is on understanding the situation fully. Now, this methodology analyzes complex human problems without necessarily or without intentionally assuming that technology is the solution, because sometimes technology is not the solution. So subsystem methodology, in short, analyzes complex human problems without attaching them to a technological solution. As simple as that. We have a problem and we don't believe that every problem has a solution within the network, within the technological hemisphere. I don't know whether this is understood. Now, This methodology was developed by somebody called Checkland, and there are 7 stages involved in this stage or in this methodology. Number 1, recognition of problem and initiation of analysis. Now, according to researchers, they believe that the first step to solve any problem is understanding or recognizing the problem. When you don't understand a problem, you cannot provide a solution to that problem. Number 2, detailed description of problem situation is also another important move. So describing the situation in detail will give a broader picture of what the problem is and how to build a solution around it. Number 3, create what we call, or we can say generate root definition of system. Now, what is a root definition of system? Root definition of system is talking about the main idea behind why the system was built and what constitutes the system. Okay. Now, the next, which is number 4, is conceptual modeling. Conceptual modeling is very essential in problem solving because it allows us to conceptualize the situation at hand and likewise conceptualize the solution. So this is more or less a kind of simulation of a problem and a simulation of the solution. By simulating problem and solution, we can actually arrive at a very accurate solution. Much therefore we can't just imagine something that does not fit in the real world. So it is very important to compare the real world to the conceptual model so that the two can align in one direction. Take for instance the space. I guess the network is back. Take for instance comparing the oxygen in this world and the oxygen in another planet. So this is something that is going to be very, very conflicting. So some as track the changes. By tracking the changes, we're able to know whether we are making progress or not. And finally, we determine actions that affect the changes. What actions can actually determining actions also another important because it helps us in reducing flaws of the system. Now, the next concept we'll be looking at is what we call the Catwool model. The Catwool model. Now, what is the full meaning of the Catwool model? The Catwool model simply means clients, actors, transformation, worldview, owner, and environment. This put together, they further define and explain the subsystem method. So they are working in line with what we just finished discussing, which are the subsystem methodology. So let's hear what the CAT say. The CAT starts with the client. Clients are those who receive the output or benefit from the system. Now, who are the actors? The actors are those who perform activities within the system. Who are the transformations? Transformations are the changes that are affected by the systems. Now, worldview. The worldview is how the system is perceived in a particular definition. And who are the owners? Are those who the system belongs to whom it is answerable, and to whom can authorize changes to it. Now, lastly, what is the environment? The environment is the world in which the system operates, by which it is influenced. So when we talk about environment here, it mustn't be a physical environment. It can as well be a virtual environment. Now, next topic is the on participatory design. Now, in participatory design, workers enter into design, while in ethnography, the designer enters work context. Now, both make workers in design and encourages workers to own the product. The user is a member of the design team. Now, what does this mean? Participatory design here means users are actively involved in the system design. This is in short, or in summary, what participatory design is all about. Now, let me give you a practical example in a context that you people understand. Imagine you want to build a house. You bought your land and engineer with all the people, the architect, the builders, the developers, everybody. You give them a contract to build a house for you. Now, the house will be better if you have the opportunity to visit the sites and contribute in terms of correcting them, in terms of directing them, or telling them what to do, or staying as part of the decision-making body. Personally, I am a person that whenever I assign a task to someone, I personally supervise the person. I'm not that will just do something 100% without a problem. I know Nigerians abroad, lived for almost 15 years, has exposed me to a lot of experiences, including the fact that anyway, a Nigerian will never do something having in mind the fear of God. Now, let me give you one example. A typical Nigerian, if he's driving, he can drink a Maltina in a can and then open his window and throw that can outside on the road without caring who steps on it, who busts it, or what happened next. Typical Nigerians will not care. So this impression has taught me to always be part of anything. I don't have to be actively there, but sometimes I have to be there, assigning the task to someone to be reporting to me instantly. So when participate, we are particularly about a scenario whereby stakeholders. Pardon?
Can't see your screen, sir.
Pardon? I the only or is everybody, because I can see that I'm sharing my screen, but let's find out from the others.
So it's all of us. So you cannot see your screen.
Okay. I guess it's my network. Let me see if I can change the network.
Sir, can you trust us now that we cannot see your screen? Because you said Nigerian, you cannot trust Nigerian.
That was the last thing you hear.
That's what I heard, sir.
Well, madam, I seriously have less trust for Nigerians, because just this evening I had to attend a gathering, and they told me that the gathering will start by 4:15, and I was there by 4:10, and people started coming after 6 o'clock. So Nigerians are not trustworthy in everything. Now, if I give you a test and leave the room and ask you people to fear God and do your test without checking the answer anywhere, I can swear on that 90% of you will open your book to check the answer. I'm very sure of this. So this is why I say I cannot trust Nigerians. Nigerians have developed this habit of not being trustworthy. And unfortunately, now that we are sitting together sometimes to abuse or to curse our leaders, at times I used to say we are worse than our leaders. Because in our own small way, the kind of things we do, wallahi, is unimaginable. I applied for my transcript through my previous university, and I haven't heard from them for almost a month. When I returned there to ask, the secretary of that particular office told me that the reason I could not get my transcript on time is because I did not pay for the paper. The secretary. So after I paid for the paper, I realized that all this delay was because I did not participate in a bribery. Now, when I first started working with Abu Zaria, my very first day at work was the day of my documentation. Now, this person, I will never forget his face. I went to his office, introduced myself, and told him that I'm here for documentation. This guy told me that the pen he's going to use, as well as the paper he's going to use, I have to pay for it first. I say, okay. I brought out paper and pen. He said, no, not this type of paper. He mean they have to buy the paper. So honestly speaking, I can say with absolute certainty that everybody in Nigeria at their own small way, or in their own small way, or at their own small level, we do one thing or another in order to compromise the integrity of the system. Now, this goes to children. Children lie a lot. Children can deceive. Everybody will do all sorts of things when they get the opportunity. So this is my reason for saying I cannot trust Nigerians to do good, because majority of us are not good. But that does not mean every Nigerian is bad. There are still Nigerians who are law abiding. There are still Nigerians who are trustworthy. I have met them, you have met them as well, and I'm very sure they exist. So this is my submission. Now let's continue with our discussion. Now, part of the participatory design, there are key features that we need to look into. Okay, number one, we say that users should be able to join the design team. Why? So that they explain what they want and how they want the system to work. Number two, we need a collaborative process. Now, why do we need a collaborative process? We need a collaborative process so that, number one, we'll keep to time. Maybe a duration has been set for the work, so we need to keep to time. Number two, it helps us track flows. Sometimes they say 2 heads are better than 1. 3 heads are even better than 2 heads. 4 heads are even far, far better than 3 heads. So this is why collaborative process is very important, because it helps us in reducing errors and downtime. And then number 3, we have what we call iterative development. Now, in iterative development, we actually repeat certain steps until certain things are done effectively. Now, it's important to also recognize that there are particular methods that are involved in this process of participatory design, and the first of them is through brainstorming. Now, through brainstorming, people can actually sit in a small room, discuss a problem, identify the problem, identify the boundaries of the problem, identify the task at hand, identify the requirements, assess the requirements, evaluate the requirements, and then implement those requirements. So brainstorming is very important, especially when the work is very large, because like I said, 2 heads are better than 1. Number 2, we have what we call workshops. Now, through workshops, people can actually understand something better, because in workshops, people work together and knowledge is being shared proportionally among working groups, which is very important. Now, we also have what we call storyboard telling or storyboard process. Now, these are achieved through the use of presentations or through the use of visualization. Through the visualization of ideas, we are able to achieve our goals faster and much more effectively. And then lastly, we have what we call the paper prototyping, which includes the use of pencils and papers to conduct exercises or to brainstorm exercises in order to understand them better or in order to come up with solutions that are effective and efficient. Now, it is very important to acknowledge the role of ethics in participatory design, because the role of ethics helps governs how we work and also how to respect the rule of law, as well as observing the codes of conduct. These are very, very important. Now, having said that, the next topic, and possibly the last one, is the topic called ethnography. Ethnography. Now, what is ethnography? Usually, ethnography is the study of users in their natural environment. The study of users in their natural environment. And it is a form of anthropological study with special focus on social relationships and does not enter actively into situation. So, however, it seeks to understand social culture, and it is unbiased and open-ended, which means it is open to criticism, it is subject to observations as well as additions or reductions. Now, ethnography has characteristics, and some of these characteristics include observational methods, anthropological approaches, focus on social relationships, as mentioned, unbiased and open-mindedness, okay, or open-endedness, and then, of course, the policy of no interference with users. This is very important. So I summarized the entire ethnography in just a few words. Now, I think the last but not the least is the contextual inquiry. Now, a contextual inquiry. Now, a contextual inquiry is just a matter of using complex English to define simple terms. The word inquiry sometimes means identification of information or identification of facts. So here the inquiry is conducted in ethnographic tradition, but acknowledges the challenges investigator focus, and it creates a model of investigation being apprenticed to the user in order to learn about the work. So when talking about contextual inquiry, it is important to know that it combines, number one, interviews. By talking to people, by asking questions, we gather a lot of information. Number two, through observations. These observations can be in a real world or they can be in a virtual world. And then, of course, there is a workforce study, which allows us to study our subjects in order to find their relationship with their system as well as their relationship with the environment. Sometimes there are use of artifacts. And when we say artifacts, we are referring to number of models or number of records that speak volumes about the system or about the requirements or about the stakeholders. It could be any of them. So in short and in summary, we can say that the models are consolidated across users, while the output indicates task sequences, the artifacts and communication channels needed, the physical and cultural constraints. So I think this is the end. So if we look at what we discussed so far, to give a summary and to give a quick recap of what we have discussed, we can say that we had a fruitful discussion on what we call user-oriented human-computer interaction, okay, which focuses on, number one, stakeholders, organizational context, social interactions, user participation, and then real-world workplace observations. And all these were achieved through methods such as the socio-technical model, the the ESTA, the subsystem methodology, the participatory design, the ethnography, and then finally the contextual inquiry. So these are, in short, some of the topics we have covered today. And with this, we come to the end of today's session. Unless if you have some series of questions, I will be happy to, I will be happy to take and answer. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any question, please go ahead and ask your question. If you can't ask the question verbally, you can send a message through the messenger in this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for today's lecture, sir. Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I want to ask, that is pertaining to 2.31 stakeholders. Please, who are the stakeholders? Is that stakeholders focus?
So we say that stakeholders are people who are directly or indirectly affected by the system's success or by the system's failure. Now, we can say failure because some people are happy when the system fails, because it is at that time they find the advantage to express their competition and to either dominate or to even disrupt. So this is why we say that a stakeholder is anyone who is affected by the success or by the failure of the system. And we say that these stakeholders are divided into two. We have the primary stakeholders who are directly involved with the system. They directly use the system. We can say they are the administrators of that particular system. We also have the secondary stakeholders, who are the people who work with the system from outside, such as the customers. And then we have the tertiary stakeholders. These are people who may probably enjoy if the system fails or if the system succeeds. So these are actually the three. Sorry, there is also another one, the facilitating stakeholder. That is the one who engage in the development phase of the system or the implementation phase of the system. So these are stakeholders and what stakeholders are all about. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Any other question?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
And sir.
Yes.
Sir,
What is your question?
when you were explaining this client actor transformation was my network was disturbing, so I didn't get it clearly. I don't know if you can just go through
I was describing what?
and this client action actors transformation worldview. My network was not good then, and participatory design.
Okay, okay.
So I don't know if
Not,
you can just go through it.
no, that is CATWU, right? CATWU model. Yes, the CATWU model is actually part of the subsystem methodology. And we say that the subsystem methodology is the method that helps us in analyzing the complex human problems without assuming that technology has a solution for everything. Okay. Now, in that process, somebody by the name of Checkland developed about 7 stages of analyzing these complex problems. Okay. Now, after we discuss those 7 stages, that is when we jump into the CATWU model. Now, in the CATWU model, what the model actually does is that it uses the model in order to define those 7 stages of the Checkland model. Now, we say that the first model is the client. The first system is the client, the actors, the transformation, the worldview, the owner, as well as the environment. Now, all of this, if put together, they one way or another affect those 7 stages, which is number one, the first thing we do is to recognize the problem, describe the solution, create a root definition, build a conceptual model, compare a real world with the model, identify changes, implement improvements. So this is what the CATWU model does. It is actually used to define the system. And in trying to do so, the CATWU is actually an abbreviation for number one, client, the A stands for actor, the T stands for transformation, the W stands for worldview, the O stands for owner, and then the E stands for environment. So this is what the CATWU model is and what it does. I hope this has answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Any other question? Any other questions, students?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening. How are you?
Fine, sir. So,
Yes.
so when you were defining the ethnography, I have network challenge that time as well. I didn't get the definition for it, sir.
So what we say is that ethnography is the study of users in their natural environment. That is in relation to computer-human interaction. Now, when you take out the word ethnography and try to understand it literally in its own way, okay, in its own way, without associating it with computer human interaction. So we say that ethnography is the scientific description of peoples and cultures in their customs, habit, and mutual differences. This is the dictionary meaning of ethnography. Now, another meaning is that it is a quantitative research method that involves long-term immersion in a community to study, observe, and document its culture, social interaction, and behavior firsthand. Now, if you look at it in terms of computer-human interaction, we say that ethnography studies users in their natural environment. Now, when we say natural environment, we are referring to that particular environment which makes them comfortable. Take, for instance, let's use the AI, for example. Now, users enjoy the company of AI today for the fact that AI gives them a more interactive experience than the humans themselves. Now, if you can ask many of your female colleagues, they will tell you that they have an AI boyfriend. And the reason I said this is because even my wife told me that many a times when she's bored, when she's bored, or when she's alone, sometimes she interacts with the AI and she feels that the company it gives her makes her sometimes forget certain things. And I said, really? So AI is now your boyfriend. So you see, the environment that we use sometimes can affect certain things. And in order for somebody to study users in their natural environment, there are characteristics involved. Number one, we say there is observational method. And when we say observational method, it means we just observe the subject, whether from afar or maybe in a close range. Number two is through focus on social relationship. We look at the relationship of that user as well as the items they are using. And also, we look at the unbiased and the open-endedness of the system or the environment. And then, of course, we should not interfere with the users. Now, why do we say we should not interfere with the users? Because if we are truly studying the users in their natural environment, then we shouldn't tell them what to do and what not to do, so that by not telling them, it allows us to have an unbiased experience of their relationship with the environment. Otherwise, by telling them what to do, we are directly and we are intentionally interfering with the user as well as their relationship with the environment. So this is what the ethnography is all about. So in short, it studies the users and their natural environment, how where they use the system as well as where they connect with the system. This is in short what ethnography is all about. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Are you sure you understand?
So I will go back to the record. I'm having challenge with voice is breaking.
Okay. Oh,
Yes, sir.
no problem.
Yeah,
Any other
but I
question?
but I get the definition, but the example you are giving us, I was not able to grab everything.
So let me use another example so that maybe you understand. Let's stay outside. Let's stay out of the computing environment. Let's look at hospital environment. Now, when you study medical personnel or medical health workers who are working in a hospital, that gives you the better understanding of how each and every one of them handles their stress. Now, people always believe that people in the medical line, they have to endure more stress than others who are not in a medical field. But how do you understand if truly there is a stress? The best way to understand is to stand up and go to the hospital, sit and see how they work. Now, according to the according to the World Health Organization, the average number of patients a medical doctor is allowed to see in a day, I think, is between 20 to 40 in a day. But do you know that medical doctors in Nigeria can see up to 100 patients in a day? Now tell me, how would you behave or how would you handle a situation where you have to talk to 100 different people in one single day? And this is what is leading to error in diagnosis. A lot of the diagnoses we are experiencing today, they are flawed. And the reason is because doctors are not well catered for. Now, if you want to observe this in the real environment, the best place to go is the hospital. Now, let's put this into example in the world of, let's say, children who are playing games in the virtual reality world. Now, how do you understand a child who has become addicted to playing games over the internet? Do you study them in their school? Do you study them in the toilet? Or do you study them while they are playing within the virtual environment? I believe the answer is the virtual environment. So what ethnography is all about, or what ethnography is telling you, is that in order to study users and understand them properly, we need to study and understand them in their natural environment. Now, where is that natural environment? That natural environment is that space that they use, whether it is internet, whether it is a virtual reality environment, or perhaps maybe a place they find most comfortable when using their computers. And we say, how do we identify these trends in them? We say through observation, through data collection, having an unbiased and open-mindedness. with no interference of these users. So this is how we gather information, or this is how we conduct study under ethnography in order to study users and their natural environment. I don't know if I'm making sense to you. Please tell me.
Yes, sir.
Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
So, thank you very much. Any other question?
Hello, sir.
Any other question? Yes, madam.
Yes, I have another. Sir, what is the meaning of invisible workers?
What
Are
is
they
the
the ones
meaning
that
of
are
what?
working at home? Sir?
What is the meaning of what?
Invisible workers. That is
Invisible.
what.
Invisible
That is
workers.
what that. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's under. Let me
That is
check.
2.2.
Okay. Now,
It's 2. I saw
invisible.
it.
Okay. Okay. You are talking about
Yes, it's
invisible.
2.2. Invisible workers. They said telecommunication improvements allow neighborhood work center and
I
home-based
get it. I get it.
teleworkings.
I get it. Now, when we say invisible workers, we are referring to individuals who have essential skills and who choose not to work in a workplace where everybody works. These are people who work domestically at home without having to go to a place called an office. So their home is their office. Some of them, they lock themselves in the room just like I'm doing right now. Now, I'm working with the distance learning as you are also studying through the distance learning. I've just locked the door and nobody comes in, and I have my phone with me with a big headphone, and this is how I'm conducting my lecture. And in the end, they pay me money. So you see, this is called an invisible work, meaning that people who work remotely, so these are called invisible workers. So as far as computer-human interaction is concerned, there are modern systems that allow people to work remotely or people to work through what we call teleworking by using telephones in order to work. Or there are people who use what we call distributed systems or distributed team system in order to work. By distributing themselves, each and every one of them perform one task or another, and in the end, they put all the tasks together to have one fully integrated task. So this is what we call the invisible workers. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. So I guess the questions are finished. So let's talk about the next topic or the next section of the of our study, which is going to be study session number 2. And in that section, we'll be looking at user-oriented perspective of human-computer interaction. But this time, we'll be looking at the cognitive human trust. This is a very, very difficult module. Of all the modules we are going to study, I guess this one is one of the most difficult of them, and this one is quite bulky. So my suggestion is that please, before you come to the class next week, of course, next week, that's on Tuesday, before you come to the class, please try to go through it so that when we're having this discussion, it will not look like you are hearing this thing for the first time. So please do some review of it before coming to the class. I'll also do my best to study it more and more and more because I haven't taught this course in a while. It is now that I'm regaining my memory of the course. I don't even know whether I'm teaching the course well now, but I hope we'll try. So please do your best, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank
All
you
right.
so
So
much, sir.
I wish everybody a lovely night. And
Thank you,
it's
sir.
raining here in Kano. I hope it is raining in your place as well.
Please go and meet your wife now.
Oh my God, madam, you are bad. Madam, you are bad.
No,
I
so
will
that
just rush to my
AI
wife
will not
as you
take over.
suggested. Thank you very much for that suggestion.
Right, sir.
All right,
Nice,
so
sir.
good night.
Happy
Oh,
New
everyone.
Week.
All
Thank
right,
you very
thank
much.
you. Okay.
Thank you so
You too.
much.
Thank you. All right.
Yes, sir.
Bye. Our regards to
Yeah,
Madam.